this is part one of the introduction to Python. And in this, we have two subtopics. The first one is, what is Python? And the second one is, who uses Python? Who actually uses Python? And why would we want to use it? So let's look at what Python actually is. So Python, okay, is an interpreted programming language. Okay, and what that means is that when Python is run, the computer will interpret each line, one line at a time, in the order that those lines are written. Okay, dynamic typing and binding mean that when you decide an object's type, whether an object's going to be a number or a letter, okay, Python will allow you to change that as you wish to change it. Okay, and dynamic binding just means you can bind together an object and something to define an object as you wish. Okay, now Python is attractive for rapid application development and as well as use for scripting. So the good thing about Python is that it's easy to learn, and that's one of the major things that attract people to learning Python. So if you're absolutely new to programming, then I'll definitely say that this is a good language to start off with. It doesn't have a lot of the problems that you would encounter or a lot of the challenges with some older programming languages. It's got simple, easy to learn and easy to read syntax. And it supports a lot of modules and packages, and programmers, they say, fall in love with Python because of the increased productivity that it provides. So who actually invented Python? When was it created? So this chap here, Guido van Rossum, or Rossum, created Python in the early 90s, okay? He started the project in 1989, and it was based on an older language for a system called ABC that he worked on. And he is the main author of Python, and I've put a link on the VLE to a video where he just describes how it's created. Now, he was the dictator for life, but he resigned from doing that just a couple of years ago. So he was basically in charge of the project for the first sort of 20 years of its life up until very recently. So you might ask, why is it actually called Python? Why is it not called P++ like C++, or P# like C#, or similar to R, F#? So it's called Python because it was named after a television program called Monty Python's Flying Circus. Okay, I don't know if anyone has ever seen a film called The Life of Brian, but that's a film created by Monty Python's Flying Circus. And one of the actors in Monty Python's Flying Circus is a man named Eric Idle, and the Python development environment is named Idle after him. So here's a famous line here from Monty Python's Flying Circus. What have the Romans ever done for us? And if you're not familiar with this joke, it's a part of The Life of Brian that they put together, these chaps here put together a resistance movement against the Romans. I think they're called the People's Front of Judea, I think. And basically they organize they want to overthrow the Romans who've come and taken over. And they have a meeting and they say, well, what have the Romans ever done for us? And the Romans, they say, well, I mean, they built the aqueduct and they built the roads and they brought literacy and, the schools, the hospitals. So it's an amusing clip. You should look at what have the Romans ever done for us. And so that's what Python is named after, Monty Python. Lots of funny stuff on YouTube that you can look up. And there's funny old Monty Python sketches about spam and knights as well from the Holy Grail. And often in Python documentation, there's reference to spam and eggs and knights and things. So it often calls back to Monty Python's Flying Circus. Now, Python's highly rated. Some of the other most popular languages in the world today are Java, JavaScript, C++, although C++ I think is fading in popularity. So who actually uses Python? Who are the supporters of Python? Who are regularly using it? So I've put a list together here. Don't be intimidated by the amount of content on this. First example is a company called Industrial Light and Magic. Okay, and they are a studio who make FX for Star Wars films. Okay, they use Python. Google are one of the biggest users of Python. And I think Google are the people who say, Python where we can, C++ where we must. Okay, so Google like to use Python for anything they can use Python for. Facebook use Python for managing infrastructure. Instagram claim to run the world's largest deployment of Python. Okay, so Instagram have this framework called Django. It's a Python web framework, and Instagram's engineering team claim that they have the biggest deployment of this in the world running just now. Spotify. When you go on to Spotify and it searches potential similar songs or suggestions and recommendations, this is done using Python. Quora, I don't know if you've been on Quora where people ask silly questions. They use Python to generate like suggestions. So if you asked a question about computer programming, it would maybe suggest some other ones. Netflix use Python for data analysis. Dropbox, the storage site, they use Python, and they actually had Python's creator working for them in 2012. And finally, Reddit. So Reddit was originally written in an older language called Lisp, but in 2005, they recoded the whole site into Python. So there's some examples of some companies who are using Python. And I would say that these are quite big technical projects. These are not kind of small companies. Beyond this, I've got I put some logos here. So all of these companies here use Python in some regard. All right, so there's a Spotify logo down there. We've got that's Instagram, 9gag, The Onion, Yahoo. All sorts of companies are using Python. So here's a little bit more of a graphic. And this just says a Raspberry Pi is a small computer. Python is its educational language alongside another language called Scratch. NASA use Python. YouTube is written in Python. So there's all some major users of Python. Right, looking at the popularity of Python now. So the most popular language in the world is JavaScript. Okay, and JavaScript is interpreted in most cases by your web browser. So when you go to a website and they have like things sliding about, generally that's JavaScript that's running. Okay. In second place, HTML, CSS. Arguably, this is not a programming language, okay, but this is how web pages are formatted. Now, in a web page, if you press F12 in your browser, we can bring up our JavaScript interpreter. And if we go to the console and we type something like console.log, okay, and then we open brackets and we do open quotes and we do hello there, okay, and we just end with a semicolon. And then if we press return, this is actually interpreted JavaScript. This is JavaScript being interpreted. After we get past the web page stuff, the first language we hit is Python, okay? And Python only recently overtook Java as the more popular language, okay? After that, we have a thing called Shell, then C#, then PHP. So here's an example of an absolute simple Python program, okay? This will print out hello world to the screen, okay? Now, something to note is that in other programming languages, they often put a semicolon here. You don't need that in Python, okay? Also, other programming languages tend to have a lot of curled brackets around, and you don't need that in Python as well. So this program here will print out hello world, and this is a perfectly valid Python program right here. Okay, so that is the end. I'll stop the recording now and see if there's any questions, and we'll move on to the first task. So anyone want to ask any questions, just fire them into the chat. If not, we'll go on to the next bit, and I'm just going to demonstrate how we actually get Python running on our computer. So hopefully there's no, it doesn't look like anyone wants to know anything. Let's get on with the next bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have, because obviously I'm using Linux, it's not much help. So I have a virtual machine here with Windows 10 running, and I'm going to log in, and I'm going to show you how to install Python. And what you can do is you can follow along if you like with me, or you can just pay attention to the instructions. It's really, I wouldn't class this as being difficult. So what I've done is I've gone to Google and I've typed in getting Python. Okay. Now you don't want to go to these sponsored adverts here with the word ad before them. Where you want to go is to python.org. Okay. So when we get to python.org, we should be able to go to downloads. And if we just click on downloads, okay, this big yellow button here where it says download Python 3.9 will give us the latest version of Python, and will also give us an interpreter as well. So I'm going to click on that. That might cause a bit of breaking in the video, so don't worry about that. So I've clicked on here, and I'm going to click, just going to click run actually. Now it's a very small program. It's only 26 meg. So it's not going to take up a huge amount of space on your computer. Okay, so if you're using a Mac, or if you're using Linux, you'll want to go to here, okay, and you'll want to download the latest release for the Apple Mac. Okay, the instructions are going to be slightly different on what to do. Okay, so I'll let you look at that yourself if you're using an Apple computer. You do not want to download Python 2. Okay, you want to download Python 3. Okay, not Python 2. All right, so we go to Mac OS X. There should be instructions on how to do it. So just get the latest one here. If we click latest, this is the first version, the default installer. Scroll down, something completely different. Files. So the Mac OS X installer, I think it will be, it's been a while since I've installed something on a Mac, but it will be a DMG format file, I think. So you want to get that thing there. Right. So now that we've downloaded Python onto this machine, this installer should come up. Now, it doesn't totally matter what you do, but I would tick here to add Python to the path, and then I would just click install now. Okay. Depending on your security settings, you might have to say yes to a few things. So Python 3.9 is now going to install on this machine. And this will install something as well called the Python standard library. After this setup is complete, okay, the setup was successful. I'm just going to click to disable the path length limit as well. That's I doubt we're going to need that, but we might as well do it while it's here. And let's click close. Okay. Now, if I go down to the start menu, you might think I'm going to type Python, but I'm not. I'm going to type idle. Okay, because idle is the Python interpreter. All right. So if I now click, I'm going to actually add this to, let's pin it to the taskbar. Okay. So now I've got my idle down here. If I click on idle, this will open up the idle interpreter. So let's just give this a second to launch. Okay. Now, this is the basic Python shell. Okay. Now, the problem I have with this is the text is very small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to options and I'm going to choose configure idle. And then I'm going to go to the highlights tab and I'm going to change it to the dark theme. And then I'm going to go to the fonts tab. Okay. And I'm going to change the font to Consolas. And I'm going to change the size to 12. Click apply. Okay, this is just my personal preference. Obviously, you can change it to any font you want. Change it to some strange Greek font if you like. Right. So I'm going to click OK. Oh, I did actually just change it to a strange Greek font there. Let's just change it back to Consolas. Consolas. Apply. Okay. Right. So this is the shell. And if I was to do 2 + 2 or 2 + 4 into the shell, it will return 6. And this is fine if we just want to type one line. All right. But if we want to type more than one line and we want to save, we're going to go File, New File. Okay. And this is going to open us up a blank file over here. Okay. This is a blank Python file. We can actually close the shell now. Now, what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to do print and then open and close parens. And then I'm going to open and close quotation marks. I'm going to type hello world. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go do my file manager. All right. And in a sensible place. Okay, so I'm going to go to this PC and I'm going to go to documents and I'm going to create a folder, okay, called code. All right, then I'm going to add some kind of a shortcut to it over here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this directory, this folder, to save my programming work in. Okay, be good if it would go down to the bottom, eh? Anyway, it's Windows. So let's do File, Save As, all right? And then we're going to go to our code directory and we're going to save this as Hello World, okay? And then just hit Save. All right, so now that it's saved, we can run the program, okay? You can see that it's behind me there. Now, we could run this by going to Run and clicking Run Module. However, what we can do is just press the F5 key. And if we press F5, what's going to happen is the shell will start, okay, and the program has run here. Okay, so that is how we install Python and run our first program. And just to make this a bit easier to read for the purposes of demonstration, okay, I don't work with text in size 18 font, but it's easier if I'm doing a demo. So we can print out all sorts of things, right? If I do print, good morning, everyone. Okay, and press F5, click OK. We can see that Python is interpreting these one line after another, and it's printing out everything between the quotation marks. Okay, so let me just jump back to the presentation. So in the week 1 tasks, we've got go to python.org and download Python for your operating system. I'll demonstrate installing this on Windows 10. I've just done that there. Okay. If you're like me and you're using Linux, then all you have to do to run Python is just type Python and it'll run. Okay. It's already installed for you. I think it's already installed on a Mac as well, but I don't know. Right, so you download the Python installer for your operating system, okay? Then create a directory called code. I've shown you how to do that as well, and save your first Python program in a folder and call it Hello World. You don't actually have to type .py, okay? Just call it Hello World and it'll save. All right, so that is the task for week 1. The homework for week 1 is to go to the Moodle and download this thing called Problem Set 1. Edit the file to answer the questions and then upload the file to the Moodle. Okay, so I'm going to give you a look at Problem Set 1 now. And as usual, if there's any questions, just put them into the chat and I'll try and answer them as we go. So let me head to the Moodle and let me open Problem Set 1. Let's do show. So, Problem Set 1. Okay, so here is Problem Set 1. Okay, now you're going to download Problem Set 1 and open it with idle. Okay, so let me just show how I would do that, right? Problem Set 1, let's click on it. It's going to open, all right? Let me just copy the text here. Okay, right click, copy, and I'm going to open up idle now. Okay, so here is my idle, and I'm going to click File, New File. Okay, and let's just fire that into there. Now, for Problem Set 1, what we can do is we can put your name here. So my name's Michael, student number, and the date, whatever the date is. Okay, now, if we go to File and do Save As, okay, we will save this in our code directory, okay, and call it Problem Set 1. Don't think you need to put .py actually if you're using idle. Save. Now if I press F5, this will run. So here we go, enter your name, Michael, hello Michael. All right, artificial intelligence. Okay, so once you've got that to run and it says hello to you, you know it's all working. We want to go to question 1. So question 1 is, add the code here to print out the string hello world. Put your code there. So hopefully you should be able to do that here. I'll give you a clue. It starts with print, okay, and ends with close bracket. Put your code here. Question 2, using asterisks, all right, stars, can you print out the first letter of your name? All right, so for example, if the first letter of your name was I, you would have to do something like this, okay? Quick demo, right? There's a star. Let's copy and put it here, 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 here. That should print out something like the letter I. Let me run this with F5 and see what it prints. Okay, so if your name was Ian, that would be the first. You could probably make it a bit better, actually. Could you not do something like that? And then that would give it some, that would make it look a bit more like a letter I. Let's have a look and see what this looks like. Okay, that looks kind of better, although I'm sure you could do better than that. Okay, so if your name was John, you would print out the letter J there. Okay, now just add your code there. Okay, question 3 is, we can take user input using the input keyword. So if we put this word input, we can take user input. So can you edit this program here to say good morning to the person who inputs their name? So at the moment it says hello. Can you change this program to say good morning? It's question 3. Question 4, modify the program from question 2. So modify this, okay? Make it ask for the user's name and say back to them, I know you like Python, then the user's name. Okay, I think that should actually be question 3 there. I think it used to be question 2. Okay, so modify the program from question 3. Modify this, all right, and make it ask for the user's name, then say back, I know you like Python, then say the person's name. Okay, so if the person's name was John, Python should print back, I know you like Python, John. Okay, I don't know why I keep using John as an example. All right, just an easy name for me to say. Okay, so question 5, all right, is we can use Python as a calculator. So number 1 is 1, number 2 is 2, number 3 is number 1 plus number 2. Can we write a program that prints out the value of number 3 here? Can we write a program that will print number 3? And finally, the last question of problem set 1 is, combine the code in the previous questions and create a program that asks the user to enter 2 numbers. So we're going to take the code from here and the code you will write here, and we're going to ask the user to input 2 numbers, all right? So you probably need 2 input lines here, okay? Now, the program will then take those 2 numbers and add them together, and it will print out the result. And it'll print something like the result is, and it'll print it out here, okay? But use the code that I've provided here to give you a clue. And that is how we do problem set. Now, once we've done this, we do File, Save As, Problem Set 1. Then we go to the Moodle page, click on Upload Problem Set 1. Okay. And then we upload Problem Set 1 as a PY file. And then I will look at it and run it and see that it's brilliant. And I'll be like, excellent, well done on Problem Set 1.